May 29, 1453. This date marks the end of an era, the fall of a legendary city, and the dramatic conclusion of an empire that had stood for over 1,000 years. Today, we're journeying back in time to witness the final, desperate days of Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire. We'll explore the epic siege, the clash of civilizations, and the birth of a new world order. For centuries, Constantinople was the jewel of the world. Protected by its legendary Theodosian Walls, it was the wealthiest, most magnificent city in Christendom, the true heir to the Roman Empire. But by the mid-15th century, the Byzantine Empire was a shadow of its former self, a tiny island in a vast sea, controlled by a new, formidable power, the Ottoman Empire. The man with his sights set on Constantinople was the young, ambitious Sultan Mehmed II. He was only 21 years old, but his determination was absolute. He famously said, "I want only one thing. Give me Constantinople." To achieve this, he assembled one of the largest armies the world had ever seen, with somewhere between 80,000 and 200,000 soldiers. And he brought with him a terrifying new weapon, massive cannons forged by a Hungarian engineer named Orban, capable of hurling gigantic stone balls that could shatter even the strongest fortifications. One of these behemoths, the Great Turkish Bombard, was so large it required hundreds of men and oxen just to move it. Facing this overwhelming force was a city on its knees. The population had dwindled, and its defenders numbered a mere 7,000 to 10,000 men. They were a mix of Byzantine soldiers, Venetian sailors, and Genoese mercenaries, a small, multinational force united in a desperate cause. Leading them was the last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI Palaiologos. He was a man who knew the odds were impossible, but he was determined to fight to the very last. When Mehmed offered him a peaceful surrender and a comfortable exile, Constantine's reply was resolute. "To surrender the city to you is not for me to decide, nor for any of its citizens. We have all decided to die of our own free will, and we will not spare our lives." The siege began on April 6, 1453. For 53 days, the city endured a relentless bombardment. The Ottoman cannons pounded the ancient walls day and night, turning sections of the mighty fortifications into rubble. The defenders worked tirelessly, frantically repairing the damage under a constant hail of arrows and cannonballs. The air was filled with the roar of cannons, the crash of stone, and the shouts of men. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the defenders fought with incredible courage. The Genoese commander, Giovanni Giustiniani Longo, was a brilliant military strategist who organized the defense and inspired his men to perform feats of heroism. At sea, the small Byzantine fleet managed to hold off the massive Ottoman navy. Thanks to a giant chain stretched across the mouth of the Golden Horn, the city's natural harbor. This chain prevented Ottoman ships from entering and attacking the weaker sea walls. But Mehmed was a brilliant and ruthless tactician. He devised an audacious plan to bypass the chain. In one of the most incredible feats of military engineering, he ordered his men to construct a greased wooden road over the hills behind the Genoese colony of Pera. Overnight, his soldiers and oxen dragged dozens of ships overland, relaunching them directly into the Golden Horn. The defenders woke up to the horrifying sight of an enemy fleet in their protected harbor. The psychological blow was immense. The ring was closing. As the weeks dragged on, supplies in the city dwindled, and exhaustion set in. The constant bombardment, the skirmishes, the lack of sleep, it all took a heavy toll. Omens and prophecies of doom spread through the terrified population. A lunar eclipse was seen as a terrible sign. During a religious procession, a sacred icon of the Virgin Mary fell, another horrifying portent. It felt as if God himself had abandoned them. On the evening of May 28th, it was clear the final assault was coming. The sounds from the Ottoman camp fell silent, an eerie calm before the storm. Inside the city, a final solemn Christian service was held in the magnificent Hagia Sophia. Orthodox and Catholic, Byzantine and Latin, enemies for centuries, knelt, and prayed together, united in their final hours. Emperor Constantine XI walked among his soldiers on the walls, offering words of encouragement, preparing them for the dawn. He knew this would be his last night on Earth. Before sunrise on May 29th, the attack began. Mehmed unleashed his forces in 3 massive waves. The first wave, composed of irregular troops, was meant to exhaust the defenders. They fought them off. The second wave of better-equipped Anatolian soldiers pushed harder, but still, the defenders held the line. The fighting was brutal, hand-to-hand combat on the crumbling ramparts. For hours, the Christian soldiers repelled every attack. It seemed a miracle was possible. But then, disaster struck. During the height of the battle, the Genoese commander, Giustiniani, was gravely wounded. His men, seeing their leader fall, carried him from the walls, causing a moment of panic and confusion in the defensive line. At almost the same moment, Ottoman soldiers discovered a small, unlocked gate, the Kirka Porta, used for small sorties. They poured through the opening, raising the Ottoman flag on a nearby tower. Simultaneously, the elite Janissaries, Mehmed's personal troops, launched their final, overwhelming assault on a weakened section of the main wall. They breached the defenses. The cry went up, "The city has fallen." Panic swept through the defenders. The line broke. Chaos erupted. Emperor Constantine XI, seeing that all was lost, reportedly cast off his imperial insignia and charged into the fray, disappearing into the sea of oncoming soldiers. He was never seen again. He chose to die with his empire, a true last Roman emperor. What followed was 3 days of terror as the victorious Ottoman army plundered the city. Priceless relics were destroyed, libraries were burned, and thousands of civilians were either killed or enslaved. It was a brutal end for the Queen of Cities. When Sultan Mehmed II rode into the city, he made his way to the Hagia Sophia. As he entered the Grand Cathedral, he was awestruck by its beauty. He ordered it to be converted into a mosque, and the first Friday prayer was held there. The symbol of Byzantine Christianity was now a symbol of Islamic triumph. Constantinople was no more. It was reborn as Istanbul, the new capital of the powerful and expanding Ottoman Empire. The fall of Constantinople sent shockwaves across Europe. It marked the definitive end of the Roman Empire, which had persisted in the East for 1,000 years after the fall of Rome. It shifted the balance of power, solidifying the Ottoman Empire as a major world force and altering trade routes, which in turn spurred the Age of Discovery as European nations sought new sea routes to the east. The event also drove many Greek scholars to flee to Italy, bringing with them ancient texts and knowledge that helped fuel the Renaissance. The story of May 29, 1453, is a story of endings and beginnings. It's a tale of incredible bravery, ingenious strategy, and the tragic clash of empires. It reminds us how a single day can change the course of history, how walls can crumble, and how from the ashes of one great civilization, another can rise. Thank you for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. See you next time.